just to say it plainly, people think you're crazy, right? There's this association with a mental health issue if you believe in this stuff or have these experiences, especially more extreme ones like mediumship and trance channeling. But it is so rare to find someone who hasn't had an intuitive hunch that has come true, you know? And that's where I like to start with people, is just this, the word intuition isn't as scary for people. You know, they say, oh, okay, I get intuition. And, you know, invite them to think about times where they had an intuitive hunch to either go right or left, or, you know, making the choice to take this job just like feels much better in my body or something. Or I get goosebumps when someone says something and it feels like it's really true. People can identify with those types of channeling experiences much more easily than, you know, some trans channel character from a different world that's bringing forth all this content. And so starting with those kind of more gentle channeling phenomenon, if you will, I think is a nice entry point, a nice, much safer entry point to have conversations with people if you aren't sure how open they are about these types of things. But the reality is people are having these experiences all the time. And how do we use those experiences to support us in our daily lives, and also learn more about how they work, who can do them, how do we increase our capacity for that if we want to. And I don't think we're quite there where, you know, you could wave your channeled content into any sort of party without knowing where people are at and feeling comfortable doing that. But hopefully this book and other work like it will definitely support that. I have one more thing to say about that. Just like I was sharing about with the health system and the Western model that's very physical, materialistic, that is based on our current scientific paradigm, which is that all that exists is the material world. That is the world view. So if you start talking about consciousness going beyond our physical brain, or, you know, anything that's beyond us being confined in this physical body, it rubs up against the current paradigm, which is that all we are is the physical. So almost everything that we see with channeling is beyond the physical. And so it's like, well, it doesn't fit. So it must either be impossible, or you must be crazy to think that you're actually having those experiences. You're making it up. And so that's where we see that rub. What's exciting is there's a lot of evidence from quantum physics, from cosmology. Many big thinkers are putting forth theories and finding experimental evidence that we actually are more than our physical. That the physical does explain some things, but that we're more than that. And that's where I think these channeling phenomena can fit in. So until we move beyond this materialistic paradigm model, we might still keep getting those rubs. Sorry, one last thing I want to share about this, because I think this is really important. For the most part, research shows that people who have channeling experiences are not crazy. They do not have a mental illness or pathology, that they may score a little bit higher on like dissociation scales and psychotic scales, but not enough to reach clinical cutoff points. So this is true in general. That being said, there are some people who have very intense, frequent, and negative channeling experiences, and those are the people who really do need help, who really do need support. And it's important to not diminish those and to support those people who really do need help to discern if it is perhaps a mental illness, or perhaps it's a channeling ability that needs to be mentored and supported so that they can learn how to manage it better and to be able to distinguish between those two pieces.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for sharing all of that. And I agree with you. I think that it is really important to look at that it's considered taboo, and that so much of the worldview is about the material world, that if you can't experience it with your five senses, then it doesn't exist. But then, and then I love your example of the Wright brothers flying invention, that so many people dismissed it because they thought it was impossible. And that I believe it was Professor Newcomb even spent his time trying to prove that they couldn't do it, and then said even if they did do it, they wouldn't be able to stop. And we see that was just blown out of the water. And then when you had the manuscript that you submitted to be peer reviewed by this highly rated journal, and it was dismissed. They didn't want to spend any time reviewing it. They didn't want to, I believe it was funds to study it. But I thought these are prime examples of arguing on behalf of limitation and maintaining a small worldview that promotes linear thinking.
Yeah.
I mean, and isn't the role of academia and research to question, to look towards limitless possibilities? Like, don't you want your students to come in and blow up something like they did with the students who started the Jet Propulsion Lab? Like, that's how you move forward. So it just seems like it is only, or one of the reasons that it's so taboo is because the social conditioning against going within, examining, really understanding your personal power, the social conditioning against that is so strong. Everything, like you said at the beginning of the interview, pushes us outward to never look within yourself. And when you look within, it's like, well, she's living in a dream world. But everything starts in the dream and imaginative world.
Absolutely. Why do we put ourselves in boxes? Because it feels safe, because it's the known. I think people are afraid of the unknown, and that creates blocks. I mean, it is so crazy to me that a scientist could say, you're not allowed to ask that research question. Like, that's so completely against science's goal, right? The whole
total antithesis. So, I mean,
there should be no question that we can't ask. And that is my excitement about channeling, to be able to ask these really exciting questions about our capacities, and that we can tap into more than our five senses. And if we can use that to help us in some way, then why not? Even if we don't know how it works and all this, I mean, why not use as many tools as we can to help ourselves on our